Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about anticipated releases for the last quarter of the year, and we've got quite a few books to talk about. This is really just a list of everything that's currently on my radar that's coming out in the next few months, but I'm pretty excited because there are a few things coming out that I'm particularly excited about. They're things that I've been highly anticipating, so I think it's going to be a good quarter for new book releases, and we'll just dive straight into the list because we've got, again, quite a few books to get through. So, swap on over to our PowerPoint. I've been enjoying doing this as a PowerPoint. I find it really easy for me to remember what I wanted to tell you about. So, we're going to continue doing it this way for the foreseeable future. But we're starting off with October 7th. We have 8 books coming out, which is a whole bunch. And I will say that this list is quite heavily weighted for the first half of October. There's a lot of books coming out then, and then fewer for the other dates. But for October 7th, we have 8. First of which is Queen Demon by Martha Wells. This is the sequel to The Witch King, or actually I think just Witch King. And apologies if you can hear my neighbor yelling in the background. Somebody's yelling outside, I don't know what that's about. Anyway, sequel to Witch King, which is the second book also in the Rising World series. And I'm intrigued to see what people think of this because I remember there being pretty mixed reviews of Witch King when it first came out. I haven't gotten to read it yet. I really want to give it a try, but I am, again, curious to see what the reception for this one is going to be like. But I generally like Martha Wells' writing pretty well. Then we have A Mouthful of Dust by Nevo, which is one of the ones I'm very excited for. This is the 6th book in the Singing Hills cycle, following Cleric Chi as they're traveling around and gathering stories. This one follows Chi and their Hoopoe companion, Almost Brilliant, as they are trapped in a sinister magistrate's mansion, and they're trying to piece together a story of a famine to try and save themselves. It sounds super interesting, and I've been really enjoying this more like horror-leaning entries in this series. Then we're getting Colin Gets Promoted and Dooms the World. This one's about a guy who works at like a hell-like multinational corporation, and it looks like he's about to be terminated, possibly like executed based on the way it's phrased. And he ends up making a deal with a shadowy figure to do a small, unspecified favor for them in exchange for a promotion. But what ends up happening is the small, unspecified favor results in the unleashing of an ancient evil, and now Colin has to save the world, which maybe hopefully will get him that promotion he's been hoping for. Then we're getting Crafting for Sinners by Jenny Kiefer. This one sounds super fun. It's about a woman who has to like fight her way out of a big box craft store that's being run by a sinister cult. That sounds like a lot of fun to me, so I'm really looking forward to that. Then we're getting Moan by Junji Ito, which is his newest short story collection. I'm really intrigued by this. I've been wanting to read more of Junji Ito's short stories. I've only read one of his sort of short story collection so far, and it was Soichi, which is all like obviously about Soichi, the main character. So I'm interested to read something from him that's less like thematically focused, and I'm curious to give this one a try. And also, it's just always exciting to get new Junji Ito, right? Then we're also getting All of Us Murderers by KJ Charles, and this one, I wanted to just read you the description, which unfortunately I did not pull up ahead of time because I actually already filmed this one, so I had to refilm it because of OBS doing me dirty for a little issue of showing all of my personal information behind the clip while I was filming. So, take 2. But this one I want to read you the description for because I think, sounds really fun. This is a genre-bending gothic mystery with a strong queer romance from beloved award-winning author KJ Charles. As the mists descend, the gaslight flickers, and terror takes hold, 2 warring lovers must reconcile in time to uncover the murderous mysteries of Lackaday House and live to tell the tale. That sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be kind of horror-y, kind of mystery, and I'm really looking forward to it. Plus, one of my friends just read another kind of historical mystery from KJ Charles and said that it was fantastic, so I have high hopes for this one. Then we're also getting The Hong Kong Widow by Kristen Loesch, and this one is about a event where these people are at a house and supposedly a massacre took place, but the police go in and see no evidence, just a bunch of pristine rooms, and they think that it was some sort of collective hallucination, until like a decade later, a witness comes forward. So I'm really intrigued by that. It's also set in 1950s Hong Kong, which is a place in an era I don't know a lot about, so I think that one's going to be a really fun read. And then we have finally for this day, Savage Blooms by S.T. Gibson, about a man who has been in love with his best friend for many years, but he doesn't want to tell her. He's not going to tell her about it, and instead he invites her along on a trip to Scotland. But during the trip, the road gets washed away, and he and his friend end up being at the mercy of like an eccentric aristocrat and her groundskeeper. So it sounds like it's gonna be like probably kind of sexy. It's gonna be creepy and mysterious, and it just sounds really interesting. I've read what's it called? It's the Dracula retelling. The Dracula retelling from S.T. Gibson. I, for some reason, can't think of the title of it off the top of my head right now. But I've read that one, and S.T. Gibson's writing is really good. So I'm curious to give this one a try just because it sounds like very different. Then we have October 14th, 6 books coming out. First of which is Graceview Patient, or The Graceview Patient by Caitlin Starling. I think this is the second book they've got coming out this year. I think The Starving Saints also came out earlier this year. But this one I saw described as Misery meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I believe it's set in some sort of strange hospital ward. I'm very curious about this. I know that Caitlin Starling seems to be kind of a hit or miss author for most people. They write kind of like weird horror, but I've read a little bit of Last Leave the Room and was really enjoying that, so I'm curious to see this one because I also recently read Misery and liked it, and so I'm curious to see what those two things are going to be like kind of mashed together. Then we have the Kamigawa Food Detectives Menu of Happiness. This is the third book in the Kamigawa Food Detective series. I love this series. It's so much fun. This is another one I have pre-ordered. It's just like a warm hug of a series. It's following this father-daughter duo who the father used to be a detective, and now he and his daughter work together to piece back together dishes that people have eaten at like significant moments in their lives, and they want to like try them again, either to like deal with a loss or try and process something that's happened or try and like make a decision, and they're kind of like, you know, my life would have gone differently if I'd done this different thing. How do I like proceed forward from here? It's about people, it's about emotions, and it's about how food like connects people. And it's just such a good series. It's so fun. I love it a lot. I'm really looking forward to this third book. Then we have The Works of Vermin by Hiron Ennis, and I am curious about this one because I've read about half of their first book, Leech, and was really enjoying the writing. It's a really interesting concept, and this one sounds like it's a very interesting concept as well. In this one, we're following a guy who I think his name is Guy, and he is an exterminator who hunts like creepy crawlies in a sort of dark fantasy world, and in this particular instance, he's having to try and fight a centipede dragon whose venom is like warping the city. That just sounds very weird, it sounds very interesting, and I'm excited to give it a try. Then we're also getting Futility by Nuzo Ono, and this one is another one that just sounds really interesting to me. It sounds like a sort of good for her women serial killer story about one woman who is a restaurateur who her food has a secret ingredient in it, and she's like extremely beautiful, and there's maybe some sort of secret behind that, and then her kind of life collides with this woman who's British, who has recently moved to Nigeria to live with her much younger boyfriend, and she's kind of dealing with a lot of jealousy in her life and begins to spiral into madness, and the two of them kind of connect in some way, and it sounds like it's going to be really gruesome and bloody, but also probably really interesting, so I'm looking forward to giving this one a try as well. Then we've got Bog Queen by Anna North, and this one sounds fun. It's got a forensic anthropologist. It's a sort of historical mystery about a forensic anthropologist who gets called in when a body is found that's clearly like an old sort of mummified, preserved body, and she ends up trying to solve this body's murder. It sounds like it's going to be sort of dual timeline, one being the sort of modern day story of this forensic anthropologist trying to solve a murder, and the other one being the woman way back like 2,000 years ago who was murdered, and like her living in her own time and place. So I'm really curious about this. It sounds like it's going to be a sort of literary mystery, and I'm really intrigued by that. I don't always get along well with literary mysteries, but this one sounds super fun. And I actually recently went to a talk about forensic anthropology and really enjoyed that, so I'm curious to see how that's going to be portrayed in this book. Finally, for the 14th, we get Boomtown by Nick Stone, which is, I believe, Nick Stone's adult thriller debut. This one is about two exotic dancers who go missing in Atlanta, and one of their coworkers becomes determined to find them. So that sounds super interesting. It's probably going to be real gritty. I know I've said interesting a bunch of times. Unfortunately, you're going to hear it a bunch more times. But it sounds really gritty and dark, and I'm curious about it. I think it sounds cool. Then we got on October 21st, we got 3 books, I believe, and the first of them is Psychopomp and Circumstance by Eden Royce. This is about a young woman kind of raised in the Reconstruction era or slightly after the Reconstruction era, and her family was kind of coddled her. She's not been allowed to pursue the life that she wants, and she gets this opportunity to be the pomp for her aunt's funeral, her aunt who's like long estranged from the family, and she starts to uncover some like sinister secrets at her aunt's house while she's planning the funeral. It sounds really interesting. It's sort of, I think, a dark fantasy story and a little bit Southern Gothic as well, so it sounds like it's going to be a cool genre blend. Then we're getting The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri, and this one I actually get confused with one of the other ones we have coming up later in this list, but this is about a knight and a witch who are, based on legend, doomed to fall in love with each other over and over again, while also dooming each other over and over again. And so it's about, in this iteration, they're trying to figure out how to break that cycle, but they're also being targeted by some sort of mysterious assassin. So it's sort of about like forging your own story, it sounds like, and I think that's going to be really cool. And then finally for the 21st, we have The Widow by John Grisham. And this one's here because a funny thing about me is that when I was growing up, I kind of jumped from children's fantasy with like talking animals, so like Redwall, Warrior Cats, those kind of things, straight into legal thrillers because that's what my mom and grandmother read a lot of. So probably in like late middle school, early high school, I started reading a lot of John Grisham, and I've been reading his books for a very long time now, and I just love them. I love a legal thriller. I don't know what to tell you, but this one sounds cool because it's his first whodunit, and I love a whodunit, so I'm intrigued. This one's about a lawyer who takes on a new wealthy client, and he's been struggling, so he kind of needs this work, but things are not quite as they seem, and he ends up getting accused of murder, and he's trying to solve the murder himself to clear his own name because he knows that the circumstantial evidence looks bad for him. So this sounds really cool, and again, I like John Grisham, so I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with a whodunit. Then on October 28th, we have 640 to Montreal by Eva Jerzik. This one is about a woman who decides to take this train to Montreal to have, I think it's like 6 hours of uninterrupted writing time. She's sort of using it as a personal writing retreat, but the train ends up getting broken down. It stopped in the Canadian wilderness. One of her fellow passengers dies suddenly, and it seems like they're trapped on this train with some sort of unknown, unseen entity. I don't know what direction this is going, if this is going to be like mystery thriller or horror or fantasy or sci-fi. I really have no sense of what kind of genre this is going to be, but I'm really intrigued regardless. And then we're also getting The Everlasting by Alexi Harrow. This is the other one I get confused. This one has a knight and a historian, and also seems to be a little bit about stories. This one I'm a little less clear on what the premise is, but I think that's generally true for Alexi Harrow books. They're kind of vague, especially the shorter ones. I think this is a shorter one. So I don't know much about this one, but I know there's like a knight and a historian who like learns the knight's story sometime in the future. That's all I got. Then we have November 4th, I think 3 books coming out. The first of them is Empire of the Dawn, Jay Kristoff. This is the 3rd book in the Empire of the Vampire series. This one's here because I'm currently like 250 pages through Empire of the Vampire, and so it's on my radar because it's part of this series that I keep trying to finish the first book up. I am enjoying it. It's like silly good fun. I wouldn't say I think it's a good book, but I think it's enjoyable. It's so big. It's so long, and there's so much of it. I need to finish it, but at some point I'm going to get there. I already have Empire of the Damned, I think is the 2nd book, and then Empire of the Dawn I need to get to at some point. Then we also get Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi, and I'm really curious about this. This is their first, I think, paranormal romance. At least I think. I'm not super familiar with Akwaeke Emezi's backlist, but this one is a paranormal romance about a young woman who has some sort of like secret associated with her birth, some sort of dark thing that they don't talk about that seems to be plaguing her throughout her life, and she ends up meeting Lucifer, who is posing as like the head of security for some sort of artifact, and they end up meeting, they kind of hit it off, and Lucifer has one of his trusted princes of hell who is trying to prevent them from getting together. So it sounds really intriguing, and I really enjoyed Little Rot by this author, so I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with the paranormal romance, even though I tend to be picky about sort of paranormal romance, romantasy, anything that's kind of romance focused, I tend to be a little bit pickier on, so I think I'm cautiously interested in this one. And then we also have The Bridesmaid by Kate Quinn, which is about, it's like rich people messiness. This is about a celebrity bridesmaid who gets murdered, and then a replacement is chosen who happens to be a forensic attorney, and she is trying to solve the murder, figure out which one of the other bridesmaids is the killer, and prevent the killer from striking again during the wedding. But there's also like a celebrity bridezilla, and it sounds like it's going to be like rich people secrets and that kind of thing. It sounds like it's going to be messy and fun, basically. Then on November 11th, we're getting Turns of Fate by Anne Bishop. I know I've heard of this author before. I don't really know anything about her other series, but this one happens to be about a place where humans live like across the river from this, what sounds like sort of fae-like creatures called the Arcana, who make bargains with people. And we're following a detective who gets sent to inquire about a ghost gun. So I'm curious about that. And it kind of gets pulled into the world of the Arcana and some sort of like adventure. That's all I got for that one, but it sounded fun, and I love a detective story. I like urban fantasy and paranormal stories. I'm just picky about them, so I'm really curious to give this one a try and see if I end up liking it, because I'm a sucker for a good detective. And then we have Wild Instinct by T. Jefferson Parker, and this one is on here just because it more aligns with stuff I used to read a lot more when I was younger, kind of along that like John Grisham line. But this one is I think sort of a police procedural following a guy who used to be a Marine sniper and is now working as a sheriff's deputy, but he gets sent out because somebody gets attacked and killed by a mountain lion, and he's being sent to like try and kill this mountain lion that appears to be, attacking people. But then there's evidence that comes to light that suggests that the guy who died is a fairly important person who's died, might have been killed before the mountain lion ever got to him. So then there's like this bigger question of like, okay, then what the hell's going on? So it sounds fun. It sounds kind of silly, and I'm looking forward to it. And then November 18th, we're getting Haven't Killed in Years. This one's about a woman who is the vanished child of a notorious serial killer. She was put into witness protection. She has a new identity. Nobody's supposed to know who she is, but then she gets targeted by a different serial killer, and that's starting to like threaten the stability of her life. And that just sounds really fun and twisty to me. Then we're getting on November 25th, Best Offer Wins by Marisa Kashino. This one sounds super unhinged because it's about a woman who is like kind of desperate to buy a house. She and her husband have had this plan for a while that they're gonna like get a house, get their life on track, have a baby. They feel like they're kind of stuck in this cramped apartment they're living in. But they've been looking for like 18 months with no luck because they keep getting like outbid, and just they're really struggling to buy a house. And she ends up hearing about a particularly good like option for them that's about to go on the market, but it's not on the market yet. And so she starts trying to infiltrate the homeowners' lives and starts doing really unhinged things like stalking and trespassing to try and get them to sell her the house before it hits the market. So I think this sounds like it's going to be really wild, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by that premise. It sounds really kind of dark, and I want to know where it goes. Then I finally have December 1st and 2nd, and I put these two together because there's one book on this list that for some reason, everywhere I look, it says it's coming out December 1st, even though books typically come out on a Tuesday, and the 1st is a Monday. But December 1st, we're getting Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. So I'm extremely excited for this. I love T. Kingfisher's horror. Everything she writes is so good, and I think it's that I really like her characters. I really tend to connect well with her characters, and she writes these really quirky, interesting horror books. They have this interesting mix of horror and humor, and I just have a great time every time. But this is another one where I just want to read you the little blurb because I think it does a great job of describing it. But it says, in an isolated desert town, a young woman seeking a fresh start is confronted by ancient gods, malevolent supernatural forces, and eccentric neighbors. I'm sold. I don't even know any more about that. But this is set in, I think, the desert of Arizona, possibly. That sounds right. It's either like Arizona or Nevada, kind of that region. And she's basically moving into I think it's her aunt's house. Yes, her aunt's house. Her aunt has died. She's moving into her aunt's house. And the town her aunt lives in is super weird. And I'm super excited. I think it's going to be fun. And then finally on December 2nd, we're getting House of Day, House of Night by Olga Tokarczuk, which this one is, I would say, the most unusual in terms of my book tastes and this particular list, because this one is much more literary. It's about a woman and her husband who moved to a small, remote village in South Poland and start learning the stories of the people who live there, the people who have lived there, the people who've died there. And it says something in the description about, like, it's not just creating the story of the town, but a cosmology of the village. And I think that sounds super interesting. It's just very different from other things I've picked up, but I'm curious to give it a try at some point. But those are all of the books that I have on my current list. We'll pop back over here. Let me know down in the comments below if you're excited for any of these, for one, and two, if there's any other books that you're really excited about that I didn't have on my list. I'm always looking to have new books on my radar, so I'd love to know about any others that I've missed here. But I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.